I've been around. I've been doing the online marketing thing for 21 years now. January of 2022 is when I ran my first Google ad.
You mean
I've been
2002?
Yeah, 2002. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I've been running these for
2002.
almost a whole year. No, oh my gosh, has it been 21 years? It's so freaking amazing.
Yo, guys, what is up? This is your boy John, the smartest podcast episode. And I am really, really excited to have this guy on the other end. He is the author of a brand new book, Turning Your Passion into Profits. His name is Matt McWilliams. Matt, how are you doing, bro?
What's up, John? Good to be here, buddy.
Man, I'm telling you, you are having a bang up kind of 2023 already.
Been a little busy. Yeah, it's man, it's hard to believe we're only 12 days in. Like it feels like I'm like 2 months into the new year, but such it is when you're launching a book, I guess. It's been fun though.
Yeah, I mean, you're running really hard, man. I mean, when did you put the plan into effect? Well, let's just first talk about the book itself, the title, what it is. Give us a quick overview, and then we'll go into backstory.
Yeah, I mean, the quickest overview is, the title says it all. I mean, how do we take these things that we're passionate about, the idea that we have, the message we have for the world? Like, I'm a firm believer, the entire premise of the book is that we're all messengers. That's what this new economy is. Like, to me, if you think about, like, the economy's changed so much in the last 20, 30 years that I'll be the first to admit, like, this book could not have been written 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This book really couldn't have been written 12 or 13 years ago. Now, I believe it's going to be evergreen. I purposely don't tell you how to get famous on TikTok in the book because I want it to be relevant in 20 years. But, we had a few things happen in the last 20 years or so. I mean, we're all carrying around the magic rectangle now, right? Some people call it a smartphone. I call it the magic rectangle. My magic rectangle, for some reason, I'm almost out of power already, and it's only 1:30 today. That's weird. But, like, none of these things existed, just a short time ago. And so we're all messengers. And my belief, the whole premise of the book is that the world needs your message. The world needs your message, but we're not going to wait for it. The world needs your message, but we're going to move on without it. And so we all need it. Somebody out there needs you. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people need your message. The only question is, are you going to stand up and give it to them? And so it walks you through sequentially, step by step, from that to the profit side, because we've all seen, I know you've been around long enough. You've seen the business owners, right? They love what they're doing. Man, I'm changing the world. I'm having fun. I'm waking up at 5:30. How much money are you making? Well, I still got a full-time job. Now, that doesn't sound very appealing. You're going to burn out eventually and you're going to give up. I've been there, done that. The flip side, and we've all seen entrepreneurs who've done this, man, the money's great. Making 7 figures, loving life. I hate my job though. I have no passion for what I'm doing. So the whole genesis of the book was about 8 years ago. I was like, I keep seeing clients on these two extremes. Why does nobody have both? Why does it seem nobody has both? There are actually hundreds of thousands of people who have both, and they're kind of under the surface. And, John, I know you're one of them. I'm one of them now. I've been on both of the other extremes. And so that's the premise of the book, is how do we marry both of those?
That's pretty awesome. So 8 years. So this is an 8-year dream of yours to be out here and finally, what does it feel like because it just came out, on the 10th? I mean, this week?
About 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is,
well, for 6 years, I was I was in that 88% of the population that says they want to write a book and never did.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, a little over 2 years ago, we had this little thing called the pandemic, and not to diminish, the negative things that came out of that. And then clearly there were a lot of them. I think it's kind of hard to not know somebody who died from it. Like I think we all do. But, just like anything negative, there was a lot of positive that came out of that. And for a lot of people, for instance, I went on a lot of hikes. Why? Because all my stores were closed down and all the movie theaters were closed down. What could you do? We went on hikes. I found out I like hiking. I never would have thought that. One of the great analogies in the book is because of the pandemic. I talk about this hike that you can go on, and imagine you're on a hike, and I talk about leadership, right? and being on, like I talk about how we have misconceptions about leadership, and people think they have to be 2 miles ahead of their audience in order to be a leader. And the reality is you only need to be one step ahead. And I say, okay, imagine you're on a hike, and you're on this hike, and you got like we all have this friend, right? He's like super fit. He's been fit his whole life, wears bike shorts to a cookout for no reason, jogs in place at stoplights, smells like soup mix all the time. You don't have to ask him if he does CrossFit, because he's already told you 6 times today, right? That friend, right? And so you're on this hike with him. He's clearly in better shape than you. And he's 2 miles up ahead, yelling back at you, hey, hurry up and watch out for the what, dude? You're 2 miles up ahead. I can't hear you. A better place to lead from is one step ahead. And every time I talk about that analogy, I picture this very specific hike in East Tennessee that we went on a bunch, where you go up about 2 miles, you go over 2 miles, and any one step that you could take wrong for this 2 mile ledge, you will die. You will fall 1,000 feet to your death. There's no way to survive this fall. And so there's a lot of good that came out of the pandemic. And one of those was I finally had time to actually sit down and write the book. And I got about a third of the way through. I know you saw it on Facebook. Every day I posted this thing saying, here's how many words I wrote. Here's how far I am. It was not only accountability for me, but the little secret is it was also pre-selling the book, getting some buzz for the book. And then all of a sudden we hit a really busy period in my life. We had a growing company. I was leading a company. I now suddenly went from we had 8 employees to, or team members to 20, growing agency, got all this stuff going on. Biggest launch we've ever run was in May of that year, about a $10 million launch. And I'm like, I can't stop writing the book. Dude, I've got too much momentum. I'm a third of the way through. And so I went to our operations manager, who's also a productivity guru, my personal productivity guru. And I was like, what do I do? And he said, can you write for 20 minutes a day? And I went, all right, I can get up 20 minutes earlier. I can write for 20 minutes. And I came down here every morning before I did anything, didn't make coffee, didn't do anything. I peed, just to be clear. Woke up, peed,
at a certain
came down.
age,
Yes.
yes.
Really, we're both over 40, right?
Exactly.
That is the first place you go. Let's just be honest. So peed, came down, flipped open the computer, and started writing. And I wrote for 17 minutes. 17 minutes, set a timer for 17 minutes. At the end of those 17 minutes, when the timer went off, I'd finish up and, tie up that thought, make sure, and then I write my notes for the next day, tell the story about the hiking, boom, boom, boom. I'd come down the next day and I'd do it again. And for the next 5 months, I wrote for 20 minutes every single day. That was it. You do not have to go to a cabin in the woods to write a book, just to be clear.
How many words would 20 minutes get you on average?
So it'd get me between 500 and 1,000.
Okay.
And part of that was, again, I mentioned that I would type my note for the next day. So when I came down the next day, I was not looking at a blank page. It said, talk about, hiking, super fit friend. And it had 3 bullet points, or tell the story about dad and how that pertains to lead magnets. Talk about, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and, and Jesus as leaders, right? Boom. Okay, great. Got it. And I would write, I had those notes there. I had any bullet points. The other thing I noticed that I didn't do intentionally, I wish I could say I was super smart and I knew this would happen, but I didn't, was I found that my subconscious was just working in the background. And so there's a story about my dad in there, right? It's my dad. Nobody knows my dad better than me, probably, and he passed away in 2005, never owned a computer, never got on the internet a day in his life, but he had the best lead magnet of anybody in the history of mankind. And I tell that story in the book as an illustration of, okay, here's what a lead magnet really is. Think of it this way. So when I came down that morning, I knew the story of my dad. I knew what I was going to write, but in the 24 hours since I'd written, tell story about dad, my brain was percolating, and I came up with a couple little just small little details to add to the story, that to paint the picture that made the story better. And I would just grab my phone and be like, make sure to talk about how your dad never got on the internet or owned a computer. That'll, it'll be curious about, okay, boom. And I'd set the phone down. And then I'd be like, oh, make sure that you mention that at the end, he sold $1,000 golf instruction package. Okay, boom. And so my brain was working. Those took me 2 seconds to save those into my phone. I wasn't like I was spending all my time going, okay, my story about my dad, what I gotta do, It doesn't take an hour. It took me, I literally went down the next morning, wrote it in 13 minutes, looked at my timer, had 4 minutes left and went, I'm done. I'm at a good stopping point. There's no reason to type for 4 more minutes. And so when you're doing that, it's kind of interesting how your brain in the background,
Right.
when I'm taking a shower, when I would go for a run, when I'm playing with the kids, even, which, I'm supposed to be all present with the kids, but that's how our subconscious works. We don't control it sometimes. And I'd have these random ideas for the book that I would just make a quick note. And then what I did was I actually sent those voice notes to my assistant at the end of every day and just said, hey, can you load these in as notes in the working manuscript for me? And he would load them in and I'd come in and there they were. That's how I was able to write like 500 to 1,000 words in, 17 minutes.
Yeah, that's great because the subconscious is working on the story. It's building it out. You're taking little notes on that, putting it into the phone, sending it over to the EA, and they're making it available to you. So when you get up in the morning, you can be as productive as possible.
Yeah. And if you don't have an EA, you're not at that point, which most of you should be, like 5 hour a week VA for, $15 an hour. Most of us can get there. But if you're not there, you're a couple months away. Well, then at the end of the day, you could take 3 minutes to just go listen to the, the messages yourself and type them out. I just wanted to make sure they got done. And for me, the easiest way was just to do a dump, to my EA and say, here, do this. And he did them. So, I mean, it's not like that's a prohibitive thing, but yeah, I wish I could say I knew that was going to happen. And that's why I did it. I just know that staring at a blank page is not an option for me. I'll sit down there the whole 17 minutes. I would still be on chapter 4. If at the end of chapter 4, I had a blank page, I'd still be in here right now, just going, what am I going to write about? I don't know.
I
So yeah,
completely can empathize with that. The blank page is not my friend. That doesn't feel like an opportunity to me.
I think that the blank pages, all the blank pages is a failure to plan, or failure to even think ahead. It could be one note. It could be, I mean, there were times, like I said, it just said, tell story about dad. Tell story about, was it 4 words? All I needed was those 4 words, or sometimes it would be, because I'd already done the research. Sometimes it would be like, share research about, growth of, like there's a story in there about Nelson Mandela. And it's actually there's 2 parts about Nelson Mandela. I talked about him in a chapter about championing a cause and how we want to, we got to be a leader. We got to be a revolutionary leader. And I talked about like MLK, Gandhi, Mandela, Steve Jobs, a few others, like, just talking about how the traits that they had and how we can apply those to building an online business and leading that, right? These are traits that we see in people like that because we go, oh, it's Steve Jobs, Nelson Mandela. I mean, like most of us are never going to spend 30 years in prison and then come out to be president of a country, but there are aspects of that we can apply to our own leadership of our 10,000 email subscribers, or whatever we have. We can apply them to 50 Twitter followers. These are the types of things. But at the end, I write about, there's a story about Mandela in there, just talking about leaving a legacy, how there's a picture of, I think it was when Mandela was in the hospital, and there's this kid. And there's a picture of Mandela where he's going like this, I think it was celebrating probably something that happened, or getting elected, who knows. And there's this kid in front of that picture trying to do the exact same pose. And right over his arm, if you look closely, it says, I'll actually pull it up. It says, they call him Tata, which is, I don't remember. It's an affectionate term. I think it's kind of the equivalent of calling somebody daddy, and he in this picture it says, we belong to you and we will be your legacy. And so I had that story, as I'm finishing up the book, like this is the hardest part. Starting a book easy, middle of the book easy. What the heck do you do for a last chapter in a book about online marketing? Like, how do you tie this up? And you can't just end it with, and then when you have 10,000 subscribers, buy my next book. Like, that's not how you end the book. You got to have a good closing to this book. I'm like, it needs to be something that really sums it up, but also has an impact on, like, they close the book and go, wow, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to be president of South Africa. Maybe I'm not going to start the world's largest company, or, start a religion. Maybe I'm never going to do any of those things.
Right.
But maybe I could leave a legacy. And I just remember, like, I did the research for that. So when I got to that point in the book, I had to actually write it. I had that quote there. I had the picture there. And I literally, as I'm writing, I wrote that chapter in one 17-minute session. On the right, I had the picture, and I was just like channeling, okay, that's a legacy right there. And so like having those things, when I came down the next day, right there on the
Right
screen,
there.
in
Yeah.
17 minutes, boom, done.
Okay. Cool. So Matt, look, you are known as, or you are known as the affiliate guy. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like a leading authority when it came to affiliate marketing, when it comes to affiliate marketing. What how did that help with the, because the thing is, the one thing you kind of uh hinted at in you while we were talking earlier was, hey, I started dropping, hey, I wrote 500 words today on my new book, but it was also at the same time getting people engaged, and I'm
Mhm.
getting ready to have a book come out. What was some of the things like that that you learned from being the affiliate guy for so many years that you have overlaid into this book launch? Because in my opinion, it's been one of the most talked about, and it's been pretty fascinating. So what is some of that you've brought into here that would be a lesson for some of us?
There's one of our affiliates sent an email that I thought I just, they're a client too. So this is a client of ours. My agency runs their affiliate program, and they promoted the book, and they sent this email, and I just thought the line was so great. I texted their CEO, and I was just like, that is such a great line. They said, well, this is Matt's first book. This ain't his first rodeo. And it kind of does sum it up. And the point, yeah, it's the first book I've written, but I've been around. I've been doing the online marketing thing for 21 years now. January of 2022 is when I ran my first Google ad.
You mean
I've been,
2002?
yeah, 2002. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I've been running this for
2002.
almost a year, a whole year. No, oh my gosh, has it been 21 years? It's so freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was January of 2020 or 2002. I can't even say it.
Can't even say it
2002.
anymore.
And so it's been a while. I've been running affiliate programs for 18 years now. This will be my 18th year. And so we've run some book launches. I've run book launches for Jeff Goins, Lewis Howes, Brian Tracy, Mark Miller. I'm trying to think of who else. We've run 12 book launches. We've sold just in pre-orders. So not even like after, but just in pre-ordered books, we sold over 330,000 books for clients. So I've been a part of those things. So admittedly, the very first one, although it went amazing, I remember I'm talking to Jeff Goins, and he knows that we run affiliate programs. He's like, hey, can you help with my book launch? I'm like, yes. And he comes in, he's like, okay, I have to, about 2 weeks in, he's like, I got to tell the publisher how many books you're going to sell. And I said, 15,000. He's like, what? I was like, 15,000. He's like, dude, my last book sold just under 3,000 books. I'm not going to sell 15,000. It's like, yeah, you are. I'm looking at the numbers. I know what affiliates we've got. And I know what we're going to bring to the table, and I know how we're going to incentivize them. And I'm doing the math, Jeff, and it's adding up to really close to 15,000. Let's tell him 15,000. He's like, I can't do that. I'm like, well, here's the deal. You're going to tell them 15,000 because I need you all in on this and believing this is possible, or I'm not going to work with you. So he told him 15,000. And then we hit 15,000 2 days before the end of the pre-order campaign. We ended up doing 22,000 pre-orders.
Wow.
And so that was my first one. And quite frankly, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't tell him that. I kind of made a bunch of stuff up and got lucky, got a few things right, made a bunch of mistakes. And then as we went through this process, doing it with 11 more, we iterated. We iterated over time, and to the point where if you look at my book launch, quite frankly, John, it is a template boilerplate copy of the last book launch we did for a client about a year ago. Like everything we did was, if you look at the pages, they look exactly the same. They're just different colors and a different book and different pictures of the people who left testimony. In fact, there was a couple people who endorsed both books. We didn't have to change those out. They are identical copies, the same exact flow. The conversion rates throughout the funnel are within 1% of each other. The copy, even, like, everything is pretty similar, because we've gotten to the point, thankfully, where we're not iterating so much. Like, there's a few things we did with this one. We did one small thing where we wanted to drive some extra bulk orders. And we said, anybody, hey, if you've already ordered a book, you pre-order the book, you're not going to get the book for a month when you pre-order it December 10th. I will ship you a book. I will ship you a signed copy of the book today if you go pre-order 5 additional copies. And, we had maybe 100 people take advantage of that. I think it was a little bit less, like 75 to 90 people take advantage of that. But that, of course, drove the numbers. We got an additional 400, pre-orders by doing that in small batches. It's one thing to go get a 300 book order, a 400 book order, things like that. But just getting those like orders of 5, really added up. So there's things that we did innovate that we'd never done before, but most of it's the same stuff we've done for years, which made it very unstressful, thankfully.
Brilliant. All right, so let's just real quick go into the meat and the heart. I like the subtitle and the title about turning your passion into profits. And I think, it's a desire. A lot of people have the desire, but you actually say, here's the steps. You've got the steps.
Yeah.
You've laid it out. Can pretty much anybody do this now?
I think so. There's a story in the book that really sums it up. When you talk about anybody being able to do this, you don't have to have letters after your name. You don't have to be, have some sort of advanced degree. If you're going to write a medical textbook, you probably should have graduated from college. I'd recommend that. But for 99% of us, we're teaching something that we're passionate about. It's a hobby of ours. It's a business of ours. It's a mission of ours. Like, how do you raise money for a nonprofit? If you're an expert at that, do you need a degree in marketing to write that book? No. And so there's this lady I was talking to, I write about this in the book. There's this lady I was talking to that she's got 2 autistic children, and she was interviewing for our mastermind. And the final step to interview for our mastermind is that I spend 15 minutes talking to you. Just make sure that you're not a weirdo. You're going to fit in with everybody. What we want in our mastermind is we want diversity of gender and race and business niches, but we don't want diversity in that somebody's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? And they're going to dominate the conversation or anything like that. So can I carry on a conversation with you? Do you have a sense of humor? Are you going to laugh when somebody in the mastermind makes fun of you and not take it personally and start shouting at them? Like, can you do that? Right. So I'm talking to this lady. She's a great fit. And I'm like, you're a great fit. I think you should be in. She's like, yep, I want to start a business, but I don't think I'm qualified. I'm like, what do you mean you're not qualified? And she's like, well, I want to help parents with autistic children, but I don't have like letters after my name. I didn't go to fancy school. I dropped out of community college. But I, so on and so forth, listed 15 excuses. And I said, didn't you tell me you have 2 autistic children? She's like, yeah. And I said, and didn't you tell me that they're pretty well adjusted? And in fact, they have friends and they're doing great in school and they play sports, which all of those things are not necessarily normal for autistic children. She's like, yeah. I said, well, let me ask you something. And I was like, I don't know what made me think to ask this. It was one of those questions that I asked and went, oh crap, did I really just ask that question? I said, you ever thought about killing your children? She said, every single day. Now, I don't mean she's actually thinking up ways to drown her children, just to be, right. Just, as parents, like, it's hard. There are you don't have to have autistic children. Like, it's just hard sometimes. We're like, oh my gosh. And so I said, and you haven't. So talk about that. Now, this is the part that's not in the book because I finished the manuscript a little bit over a year ago. I found this out after we'd already signed off on the manuscript. This is really cool. She went out, she started that platform about 18 months ago to teach parents with autistic children. All her platform is here's what I'm going through in life and here's what I've learned. No letters, no degrees, no fancy. She to this day doesn't even know the difference between a cerebellum and an amygdala. Okay, it doesn't matter. She has over 10,000 YouTube subscribers from doing these videos. One of the videos has about 250,000 views, and it's all about traveling with autistic children.
Wow.
Something that is really, really hard because you're taking a kid who's used to routine and you're waking him up early. You're putting him into bed late. You're putting him in on a metal tube and up at 35,000 feet, and they don't understand why their ears are popping and why they have to be crammed in with 215 other people, none of whom apparently understand personal space. That's hard to do that with autistic children. It's hard to do that with any child. I don't even like it. I don't like flying for that reason.
And you're an adult.
So she does this video. And one of the comments on this video said, thank you so much. I've got a 7-year-old autistic child. We haven't left our county in 4 years because I've been too afraid to go anywhere. because of your video, I just booked a flight to Hawaii. I'm like, yeah, anybody can do this. You don't need the letters after your name. You don't need a degree. You don't need to be an expert. She's not an expert. She's not a parenting expert. She just figured some things out. She figured out what worked and what didn't. And she shared it with her audience. That's really at its essence, that's all it is.
Brilliant. Matt, it's been absolutely fantastic talking with you. My last question for you, and it's kind of the last question I always like to end on, is, was there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. There's about 5,000 things you could have asked me about. You know what you didn't ask me? What's the story about my dad?
I was going to. I didn't want to.
You know what? I'll end with that because it's my favorite story in the book. Because, my dad passed away 18 years ago. Way too young, just before he turned 50. And of course, nowadays day goes by that I don't miss him. And the thing that's really been interesting, that's resonated with me, is the impact that this story has had on other people. Because I didn't think it was like, it's about lead magnets. We create these lead magnets so that we can convert people into subscribers, right? And it's like, so I share in the book, like, the key to a lead magnet is to keep it simple. Like, step one, define the number one problem your audience has. Step two, solve it. The end of lead magnet, right? And we have what we call the 3-hour rule. You cannot take more than 3 hours to create a lead magnet, because what we do, think, it has to be super fancy and the graphics have to be amazing. It has to do all this and all the things that we see the people who are more advanced, they've been around for 10 years. One of my favorite quotes in the book is, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And so we do that and we think, I got to have this fancy lead magnet. The problem is those usually convert poorly because they're too advanced, too detailed, and they take too long to consume. And so I told the story about my dad, had the perfect lead magnet. Again, never got on the internet a day in his life, never owned a computer, never owned a cell phone. But my dad was a golf instructor, and he would walk up and down the practice tee at the golf course, and he would see somebody in pain. Now, not physical pain, but like they'd hit a shot and they go, dang it, slam their club and go, oh, you suck. I hate this stupid game. And he'd go up to him and go, hey, can I help? Well, yes. I'm the local golf instructor authority. And he'd say, let me help you. Spend 5 minutes with him. He'd give him one tip. He'd find one thing that was going to tweak things just enough quickly that they would see fairly instant results. Now, are they going to go from shooting 190? No. Are they going to suddenly be on the PGA Tour in 6 months? No. Are they going to have anything to do with Tiger Woods at any time in their life? Probably not, but they'd hit a couple of shots better than they'd hit a shot in months. And they would turn to him and go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Those are the best shots I've hit in months. How do I get more lessons? And my dad would sell him $1,000 golf instruction package. That's what a lead magnet is. And I've got a friend of mine. I wrote this book for beginner to intermediate entrepreneurs, right? People who are starting an online business. They don't know really where to start. And I have a friend of mine. He's got a low 7-figure business, low over $2 million business. And he said, I wasn't going to read step 4 because I think that stuff's too basic for me. I said, I read the story about your dad and I read about the 3-hour rule. And he said, Matt, I went to my team and we have 4 main lead magnets. They're doing over $2 million a year. They have 4 main lead magnets. He said, we got 8 hours, so 2 hours each. That story with your dad resonated with me so much that I was like, how can I make this as simple as possible? They re-engineered their 4 main lead magnets. He said, overnight, our opt-in rate went up 40%. They're going from a $2.4 million company to north of 3.5 because of a story about my golf instructor dad. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like that idea, that concept is really resonating with people. Wow. So I think that's the power of story for one, but also just summing up like this complicated lesson in the most simplistic way. So that's the story of my dad.
So there you go, guys. Turn your passions into profits, the proven path for building a rewarding online business. Matt, thank you so much, man. And if people want to follow you, get in touch with you after they get the book, how do they do that?
Yeah, you guys, you can get the book anywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. I mean, if they sell books, they sell my book. Best place to go though, guys, go to passionsintoprofitsbook.com/Lawson. John, we've got some extra special bonuses there for your peeps. So make sure you go to that link, passionsintoprofitsbook.com/Lawson. And I know you'll probably put that for people where they can easily
Yep.
click on. But that's the place to go. And then there's links on there. If you just want to connect with me, follow me on social media, or, you know, shoot me an email or a text. My number's at the bottom of the page as well. So if you have any questions, or, well, you know, you get stuck on we got a bunch of exercises in the book. You get stuck on one, have a question, just text me. You know, I do respond, usually not right away, but I'll respond within, you know,
He will.
2 days. So,
Fantastic, man.
yep.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right, we out. Peace.
Hey!